So, last week, Ed Sheeran concluded yet another copyright lawsuit against him. Copyright is a weird but important part of music that can get very complicated very fast. There are often a lot of collaborators on a song, and there are record labels and other forms of distribution that might have rights when it comes to making money from music. And it is, of course, correct that somebody shouldn't just be able to copy some music without getting permission and or giving the original artist the piece of the pie for their creativity. However, it does raise an interesting question, which is what actually constitutes copying, and why copy in the first place rather than just be original? Well, let's talk about it. An artist by the name of Sami Chokri made a claim that Ed Sheeran had taken parts of Shape of You from one of his songs called Oh Why. Here is Shape of You, and here is Oh Why. Let me know in the comments if you think Ed copied Sami's song. The court concluded that he didn't, but this isn't the first time that this has happened to Ed Sheeran. He had a dispute back in 2016 with the song Thinking Out Loud. And I can't sweep you off of your feet. Sounding like this Marvin Gaye song. You may also remember Robin Thicke and Pharrell Williams having to pay out millions for copyright infringement on a Marvin Gaye song as well. Dua Lipa is currently fighting off 2 copyright infringement lawsuits for her song Levitating, and these are just the big mainstream newsworthy cases. This happens all the time, and I have some theories as to why, but we will get to that because that is not even the most interesting part. The most interesting part to me was Ed Sheeran's video response when he won his lawsuit. Here's what he said.
There's only so many notes and very few chords used in pop music. Coincidence is bound to happen if 60,000 songs are being released every day on Spotify. That's 22 million songs a year, and there's only 12 notes that are available.
Now, I happen to disagree with Ed here because although what he is saying is factually correct, on a piano and a guitar, etc., there are only 12 different notes before you start repeating yourself. And there are 60,000 songs released on Spotify every day, so there is bound to be some coincidence. However, I don't think that's the reason that all these copyright claims are coming up. Let me show you. First of all, what elements actually make up a song? Well, there's the melody, which the melody in question in this lawsuit is this. You'll hear it more clearly if I went... something like that. The problem is with this is that this melody is 4 notes, and 3 of those notes make up part of the chord, and that is very, very common. You are rarely going to find any music that does not use notes from a scale and from a chord. Literally all music is made up of that. So in that respect, you will find thousands and thousands of songs that use those 4 notes. The second element that makes up a song is the rhythm, and in this case, you've got 4 notes that are repeated twice each. Once again, that is literally in pretty much every song that's ever existed, that rhythm. If you take it out of context, if I wrote a song like this, am I copying Ed Sheeran because I've used the same rhythm? Well, no, I'm not, because that rhythm can be seen in literally everything, if not most things, because it's just equal, even notes. The next element that makes up a song is the use of chords, and the chords that are used in this song are... over and over again. It's a 4-chord sequence, and you may have already heard, but most pop songs use a 4-chord sequence, and that is not revolutionary either. There are lots of songs that use that exact chord sequence. Does that mean that they're copying Ed Sheeran's Shape of You, or that he has copied them? No, it doesn't, because once again, if you're using chords in a scale, you are very, very limited to what chords you can actually use. The next element that makes up a song is the structure. And the structure of a pop song is pretty much standardized now. You're going to get some form of introduction, a verse, a chorus, a verse, a chorus, a bridge, another chorus, and then an outro, or something around that form. That is very, very common now. Literally 90% of songs in the charts are going to include that structure. So once again, that's something that's not exactly revolutionary. Another element that makes up a song is the timbre, and timbre just means the quality of sound, so the instruments that you use and the types of sounds that you're using in a song. And once again, pianos, guitars, drums are all standardized instruments that everyone uses. And now, electronic sounds in pop music are also becoming pretty standardized. You hear the same kinds of sounds in most songs. So you might hear on a piano, or you may hear Now, obviously, the second one of those was much closer to Ed Sheeran's version of the song. And that's all based around the timbre. I played pretty much the same thing, I just changed the sound of the instruments. So that makes up a significant element of where copyright might come in. But does that mean a piano can be copyrighted from another song? Or does that mean drums can be copyrighted in literally every pop song ever? Well, we'd end up with a lot of copyright lawsuits if that was to be the case. And the last element to make up a song is the lyrics, if it has words at all. And a lot of the sentiment of these songs all are around the same subjects. It's all about relationships or going out on the town and hitting them bottles. I think that's probably more of a modern thing, and it's probably because these songs are wanting to be played in clubs where that's kind of why people go there. What I'm trying to say is, for the most part, each of these elements on their own can't be pursued for copyright because all songs share all of these elements in some capacity. So does a song have to use more than one of these elements in order for it to be considered copyright? Can I just copy some lyrics but put it to completely different music? Or can I copy the chord structure but use completely different instruments and that be okay? Well, maybe, but I think the most important consideration is intent, which is where it starts to become slightly unclear as to how much inspiration you can take from someone else's work. Many artists, including Ed Sheeran, put lists of other artists in their album sleeves from whom they have taken inspiration, and they have obviously intended to produce a similar song or sound to the artists or songs that they have listed. I think as long as you can't clearly see that a certain section of a song includes many of the elements of another song so that it sounds near identical, then that's okay. I would probably argue that it can be classified as being inspired by if most of the section is made up of somewhat original ideas and if the artist didn't actually mean or intend to copy. The reason I actually disagree with Ed Sheeran here is because if you go back a couple of hundred years, 2 or 3 elements were slightly different. Firstly, everyone copied everyone pretty shamelessly. Classical composers were always taking parts of other composers' music and using it in their own, and that can be said for pretty much any form of art. Picasso even said, "Good artists copy, great artists steal," which tells you all you need to know. And even now, every artist in the charts is copying the same song structure, the same idea of using a hook, the same electronic sounds, the same subject matters, because they are copying what's been successful before them. Now, however, you have to be more careful about how much direct copying you do as an artist. The second difference from a couple of hundred years ago is structure. Music now conforms very heavily to the song structure that everybody knows, which usually means a set of chords for a verse, and a set of chords for a chorus, and then something different for a bridge, and then you put those into the song structure that we all know, and out pops a chart hit. This was not how songs were made even 100 years ago. Yes, there was still clear structure, but what happened within that structure varied massively, making copying small parts of someone else's music irrelevant. I think if you had said to a composer like Mozart, for example, that someone had copied 4 repeated notes from a song, he probably would have laughed, because to classical composers, that was pretty much expected. So I don't think the problem is with the amount of music being released every day or with the amount of individual notes that there are to use, because if that was the case, Ed Sheeran would sound like Bach, and I think it's safe to say that Shape of You is slightly different. And this is because there is endless contexts and sounds and structures and lyrics and many other factors. The problem is that in modern pop music, artists use about 0.5% of those things, and because now copying or stealing ideas infringes on copyright, and rightly so, there is bound to be more and more of these lawsuits coming up because everyone wants to emulate the last #1 hit, which follows such a narrow formula. I also think that the public's attention span for music has a big role to play in why musicians don't experiment more, particularly TikTok, and that is exactly what this video is about. So if you are interested in that, then head on through and I will see you there.